Are you wanting to close more sales? That almost sounds funny saying, of course you're looking to close more sales. Who isn't looking to close more sales? Let's talk about the power move, right? The one thing you got to do if you want to close more sales. Hi, I'm Shawn Casemore, and I help you learn how to be a top performing sales professional so you can earn more money in less time. If that sounds good to you, make sure you click subscribe to be notified each and every time I release a new video. And if you happen to like this video, click the like button. I'll produce more just like it. Let's get to closing your deal. Fundamentally, when it comes to closing, the biggest mistake I see with most sales professionals I work with and some that are just part of our community is they don't try to close early enough. Now, if you haven't seen my video on the assumptive close, make sure you check it out. But essentially, you want to be trying to close throughout the sales process. Now, not a hard close, not like a, hey, sign here, right? But let me give you an example. When I was young, like really young, like early 20s young, I sold cars. And yes, I was a used car salesman, new car salesman. I sold them both. But essentially back then, this tells you how old I am, there wasn't really much of an internet and email was brand new. So the way you sold cars back then is people drove onto the parking lot, you'd follow them around in their car, hoping they'd get out, and you had a chance to try and work with them. Now, what I used and what I learned to use in that environment that's helped me to this day is the assumptive close, which is if the conversation went well, maybe they test drove a car, maybe they didn't, but you got the sense they're interested in a car. I would say something like, would you like to come inside and have a look at some further information? Would you like to come inside and have a look at the numbers? It kind of depended on the conversation. That assumptive close, which is what it is, it's a test close, told me, are they ready to move to the next step or not? So the fundamental thing you need to do if you want to close more sales is use an assumptive close. Test close throughout the sales process by asking, would your prospect like to go to the next step? Now, you're not going to say, do you want to take it to the next step? But you might say, hey, would you like to go and look at some numbers? Would you like some further information? Don't use this to move to a quote. Here's why. Hear me out on this. A lot of prospects will tell you, yes, send me a quote because they want to get rid of you. They want some time to think and do further research. So don't jump to that assumptive close. But would you like further information on this? Would you like to book a time to discuss this further? Would you like to come by our facility and take a look for yourself? Can I organize the demonstration for you, right? Those are all examples of an assumptive close you can use during the early conversations in order to ensure that they, your prospect, are where you think they are and they're ready to move to the next step. So that is foundational or fundamental to trying to close more. There's more to it. When it comes to closing, you've got to ensure that the reason to close is compelling to the person that you're trying to sell to. Here's what I mean. When it comes to information that you're sharing with your prospect, you're answering questions, you're asking questions, maybe you're sharing resources and information and specifications and all sorts of stuff, right? That's all good. That's information. But information just gets them to think further. Information gets them to want to spend time on their own reviewing the information. So too much information, even in something highly technical, is a bad thing. What you've got to consider is that people ultimately react, they respond when it comes to emotion. So you've got to find a way in whatever it is you sell to spark that emotion. Figure out the triggers that create emotion. So that could be that, what is the problem that your prospect is facing and how does your product or service solve that? Does it solve it quickly? Does it make their lives easier, right? When you understand what the pain is, not that you share that pain with them, because I'm not a fan of pain selling, but what you can do is understand that, okay, if my product or service solves these issues, how can I share that in that sales process? Because I'm trying to create some emotion. I'm trying to get them to go, yeah, we need this. Yeah, this is exciting. Yeah, this is definitely something we've been missing out on. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're going to go another day without this. I've got to create that kind of emotion. And I do that by asking questions triggered to whatever the problems or challenges are that my prospect is facing. And I do that obviously by having a good discovery dialogue and understanding what those problems or challenges are that they're trying to resolve. So what I want you to consider here is you've got to have some questions that you position during the sales process and during your sales conversations that compel your prospect to want to move forward. It taps into the pain so that you can tap into emotion and ultimately get them to go, yeah, why wouldn't we move ahead? Now's the time. We have to do this. If you just say, here's more information, here, I got some more information for you. Let me share this information with you. It just gives them more things to think about, which is not going to move the sale forward. It's not going to close the deal. Emotion is what helps you close that deal. Compel your prospects to want to close the deal. 3 steps. I always give you 3 steps because 3 is easy to remember to transition to a close. So let's assume for a moment, you know what that makes, yeah, never mind. Let's assume for a moment that you've been planting seeds, you've been assuming the close all along, the prospect has wanted to move to the next step, and now you're at the point where you're like, okay, next step is to give them a price, give them a quote, give them a proposal, and I want to transition to that. But maybe it's not easy. Sometimes they say, you know, I think we're at a point I'd like to see a quote, okay? That makes it pretty easy. Now again, not to say you want to jump to that. If you've had a good dialogue and this has been an ongoing conversation and you believe it's time, then it's time. But if they're saying that early in the conversation, be wary. They might just want to get rid of you, okay? And I've got videos on that you can check out here. So with that said, what I'd like you to do is this, the 3 steps I'd like you to take. Step 1. It strikes me at this point that it would make sense likely we take this to the next step. Would that make sense to you? So it's a very open-ended question. The reason it's open-ended is I'm trying to get them to tell me if they want to move forward or not. Now, if they say, no, I have more questions, okay, great, let's address them. If they say, yeah, I think it is time to move ahead, then I follow up with this second step, which is to ask them another question, which is, great, what would the next step make sense? What would the next step be, that would make sense for you? What would the next step be that would make sense for you? I'm trying to understand, are they where I think they are, which is the next step is a quote or a proposal or a presentation of some kind, okay? So I ask that follow-on question, that's step 2. Step 3 is if they say, I think the next step, Shawn, is you give me a quote, you give a proposal, I say, great, let's book in our calendars right now a date to review that. Assuming I send it to you tomorrow, I want to give you a few days to review, and then there's some things I'll have to go through with you. Let's book a time next Tuesday or next Wednesday. So you book a time about 3 business days after you send them the quote, and you book it right then and there. So those are the 3 steps to transitioning to a close. Step 1, vague, open-ended question about where do they want to go next? What is that next step in their mind? If it is to get a price, get a quote, get a proposal, say great, and you move forward with the second step. The third step then, the key, is that once you say to them, okay, what's the next step? They say it's a quote or proposal. Excellent. So they move in the next step. They want a quote or proposal. Let's book a time in your calendar to review that quote. Assuming I'll have it to you tomorrow, there's some things I want to walk through with you that probably won't make sense. How does next, boom, 3 business days later work for you? And you book that while you're in the meeting. Those 3 steps will ensure that you're not getting into a situation where you're sending a quote too early, right? Which I mentioned earlier, where your prospect says, yeah, send me a quote, and they're just trying to get rid of you. So those 3 questions and steps, which are kind of mashed together, are the key to transitioning to a close and ensuring you're not doing so early because somebody's trying to get you out of the office. One last bonus tip for you, just a second. The bonus tip is this. If you're doing everything we've talked about in this video and you're not closing, right? Suddenly the prospect takes a left turn and says, no, we're not ready to close. I got to talk to 3 other competitors, right? They throw information at you that you weren't aware of. The key is don't panic. Don't panic. So many sales professionals, we think we're at a certain point in the sale. We get new information. We go, oh, crap, I lost this opportunity. Then we get all bummed out. We go back. We tell our boss, oh, I think this opportunity's gone. You don't want to be that way. You got to keep a positive mindset, right? We're in sales after all. So if you get information thrown at you that you didn't expect, they're talking to a competitor, they're going to get other quotes, they're not ready to buy till next year, right? Which could be a sign you didn't have an effective discovery dialogue. But let's assume for a moment this is a surprise to you. Don't panic. You simply say, that sounds great, and then I want you to go to your 3 steps to try and close. You say, well, what would be the next logical step from your perspective? Right? Now, at this point, they're probably not going to say, send me a quote, because they've got some other work to do. If they do say, send a quote, I'd like you to send a quote, then you say something like this. You say, I'm happy to send you a quote if you'd like, but it sounds like you're not quite there, and pricing in our market does change periodically. Would it make more sense we book a follow-up meeting? Now, if they say, no, send me the quote, send them the quote. We're not here to argue with them. But you notice what I'm doing. If they do in that situation, you've got new information, you still go back to the 3 steps to flush out where they're at. And if they suggest they want to quote, you just validate that that is the next step by throwing in some, hey, prices change sometimes. Maybe we just book a follow-on meeting, right? Because now you're getting them into your calendar, which is key. So there's kind of a bonus tip for you if you're faced with surprise information in the close. I hope you've enjoyed this video, another one in many that I create on a regular basis. If you haven't checked out my other videos, make sure you visit my YouTube channel at Shawn Casemore. And also, you can visit my website, www.shawncasemore.com, for other selling and sales resources. So make sure you check these out. Click that subscribe button so you get notified each and every time I release a new video. If you like this video, click like, and make sure you get out there and let's go sell something. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.